Central Coast Writers.
You've been to the Writers' Conference, you know Teri Bayus.
You do, because she was the last director before COVID. And before that, she did everything around, I don't know anything that Teri couldn't do. If there's a kite in the air, she'd put it there. If there's snow on the ground, she'd put it on Morro Bay. She is an event organizer extraordinaire, a good writer and a dash good teacher. So I would like her to come and join us and tell us about publishing art post-pandemic. She's just not long ago released her second book, The Greatest of Ease. It's about the time she'll tell you.
I ran away and joined the circus.
Yep. Okay. Welcome, Teri Bayus.
Thank you. So welcome, everybody. For those of you who don't know, I did run the Writers' Conference for 6 years, and then I did large events for cities. So Taste of Pismo, Kite Flying, Snow in Morro Bay, Light Boat Parade. That's what I really did put snow on the ground in Morro Bay. So for all the cities, I ran all the big events, and then COVID happened. And then I was also a food writer. I worked for the newspapers here, and every week I had to write a food column and a movie critique. And on March 12th, 2020, I lost all the jobs. And I was like, okay, I've been saying if everything goes away, I'm gonna write this book. And so I wrote it. So it's called a romanoclip. And it is, what that is it's everything in the story is true, but I've changed the names and I've changed the timeline. So it runs more of a narrative type of feel to it. That and all the people that I was with the circus with are still alive and would be pretty mad at all the bad things I wrote about them. So, so it took me about 2 years to write it, and then a year to edit it. And I released it on just November 15th last year. So it's brand new. But while I was in my last round of editing, this is my third book. And so I had done the whole book tour and everything. And so I looked around and called all the people that I'd helped for all the years with the Writers' Conference and the cities and everything else. And bookstores said no. The coffee shop said no. And, you know, even the libraries said no. Because everything changed in COVID, right? So I thought I had, like, I was going to step out and sell a zillion books overnight. And so I'm nothing if not a marketer. So I went back, I took a step back and put a bunch of new stuff in my quiver to sell this book. I did self-publish, and I'm teaching classes on how to do that. I call it community publishing because I didn't do it by myself. I did it surrounded by a lot of wonderful people who got me almost a near perfect book. And that doesn't happen from my first draft. My first draft was like, ugh. Anyway, so I wanted to share with you all of the things that I've discovered that worked. I didn't put any that didn't work because those are obvious, coffee shops, but I wanted to share with you all the things we did. And so what you see back there is my lovely husband, and that's my display that I take with everywhere. And so after this, you can go and look at everything. And I'll explain what everything is and what I use it for. So the first thing I did was I signed up for and everything I'm talking about is on a little flyer out there. So you don't have to scribble ridiculously to figure out what did she say, was it this or that. So that and the website are all in that little thing. And then Janice or Steve will actually send it out with the Zoom, okay? So first thing I did is I signed up for Substack. So Substack is a new kind of animal that the authors are really embracing because it does everything. What it is it's podcast, it's chat, it's a blog, it's a way to sell things, it's a way to get people buying you, kind of like a Patreon, but it's all on one thing. I discovered Substack from Chuck Palahniuk, who is my favorite writer in the whole wide world. He wrote Fight Club and a bunch of very, very subversive stuff, but I love this guy. And him and I connected with the Writers' Conference because he was going to be my keynote every year, but every year something happened. So him and I had been kind of corresponding, and he sent me a thing. He's like, I'm trying this new thing. And so what it is, it's a direct line. Like he writes about whatever he wants to write about, his writing process, his dog, whatever. And then you comment on it and you go into a little chat. And everybody that watched it goes into a little chat. And then he puts contests on. And he does things like, I won one of the contests because it was reimagine the monkeys. For you, any of you under 60, the monkeys were a group that came out on TV that were supposed to rival the Beatles. And they were like this kitschy cartoon Saturday morning group. But there was 400 musicians that tried out for the Beatles. Charles Manson tried out, for the Monkees, Charles Manson, Jim Morrison, Stephen Steele. An amazing amount of people were rejected from this group. So his question was, reimagine the Monkees, and who would you put in from that genre, and why would you put them in there, and what would they sound like? So I picked Jimmy Buffett, Phil Collins, Karen Carpenter, and Tina Turner. And so I won. And so when you win, Chuck sends you these presents. He beads, which is like, he's like the weirdest man in the whole wide world, but he beads, and he took when his mother died, he took all of her jewelry and tore it apart, and he makes these things that are like, he calls them bookmarks, but they're 8 feet long, and this beautiful beaded thing. And he sends it to me in this box that's like, it's got bombed with glitter and glitter balls. And when you open it up, stuff comes flying at you. And he sends out probably about 10 of those a week to his fans. And so it's like kind of a really cool way to engage. And so then I'm like, God, I wonder if he's the only one doing it. So then I found Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on there. And Kareem's doing like news from his point of view, which I really kind of appreciate, because he's, a Black 70-year-old man who's kind of really lived life and is doing all these really cool things. So then he had his own thing. So I'm like, I'm going into Substack. I'm going in there. So you set it up. It's pretty easy. It's like a blogging platform. It's really easy to put it up. It's kind of like Medium used to be, where it says it's 1 minute to read or 2 minutes to read. It's free for everybody. But if you want to support me, then you have different levels that you can pay monthly or yearly, and then you get bonus stuff. So that's why that little box is back there. That's all of the stuff that goes to all of my writing whenever I'm doing a talk about selling my books. And so they get that, or they get chapters early. Chuck does where he actually will critique your work, which is like mind-blowing to me, that you can send 2 paragraphs to Chuck Palahniuk and he lets you know how you did or didn't do. And so Substack is a really awesome thing. The only problem is that everything in there looks the same. You can't brand it differently. It all looks the same. So if you're into making everything look different or unusual, you're kind of stuck with the same format. But I launched my Substack, and I think within 3 weeks I had 100 followers. So, it's a community more than it is me just yelling at them with my blog. Because every time I put anything out, people comment on it and we talk about it. And what about this and this and that? It's fabulous. So that's Substack. And the next thing I did was I went and got, the young one will know that, I went and got Canva. So Canva is a graphic design program that makes you look like you know everything about graphic design. So with the book, I just scanned in the book. They picked the color palette of it. So everything I do, I can just pick the color. It's like, well, here's your color palette, and you can make everything. And here's what the cover of your book looks like. So everything looks the same. So I build one ad, and then I can say, okay, make it for Instagram, make it for Facebook, make it for a flyer. And they take that same thing and do it. And it makes you look like a pro, because it's really easy to plug everything in. The book, so Canva's free, but it's $99 a year for the pro. And the reason that I got the pro is because it does all my social media scheduling. So I can go in there and pick this one thing and say, I want it to go to all these platforms, and it redoes it for all of them. It schedules it on that date, and I'm done. I've just hit 10 platforms at one time with the same message. So Canva is, I can't say enough things about that. And then the next thing I did was I contacted Cal Poly, Cuesta, and Hancock and asked for interns. Because while I was doing the conference, there was always more work than any of us could ever do. My advisory committee was like 25 people, and then I had 15 to 20 volunteers helping. And then I had at least 3 or 4 interns. Almost all of my interns went on to work for me as a paid position or be a very good friend. Only one of them hates my guts because she stole one of my Palna checkbooks and didn't give it back. Anyway, and I threw a fit about it. But anyway, so you email the English department heads and say, I'm an author and I've got a book coming out and I need some help. All of those kids that are in an English thing want to either go into publishing or become a writer. They want to be a part of the world that I'm already in. So I got 10 different applicants that applied for it. I chose 3. And it was mostly based on personality because you either like me or you can't stand to be in the same room with me. And so, and then I each gave them one task. One of them is just to get me on podcasts because that's another thing that you have to start doing now. The other one is just to write press releases and get it to everywhere in the press. And I gave her, an outline and do that. And then the other one was to, what was she doing? Oh, speaking engagements. Because you don't just sign books anymore, you do things like this. You have to go and speak to people. So if you're shy, start going to, Toastmasters immediately, because there's no way to sell books without doing this. So each of them only had one job, and then I have them sign a contract that's very clear where each of us stands, how it ends up, and what goes where, and everything else. And then the first trial is 6 weeks, and if it works great, I up it again for another 6 weeks, and they get credits for it. Almost everybody has to do something like this in order to graduate, so it works out really well. And then I had a website for myself, but of course it was like, Teri does everything. So I made a website just for the book. I did it on Wix, which was so easy. That was ridiculously easy. I mean, I can make websites, but this thing, even my husband can make a website. So I included on the website was just the book cover, my event schedule, where to buy the books. And so what I did is I didn't want to just buy it on Amazon. So I published on all platforms, on Barnes & Noble, on Noble, on Google Play, I published everywhere. And so the book is an ebook, a paperback, and a hardback. And then they can choose to go, I always push them to go to bookshop.org. Bookshop.org is where you buy a book and then they give money to your local bookshop. So when you sign up on bookshop.org, you say, I want to support, I always do Volumes of Pleasure and Los Osos. And then there's also one like, if you want me to sign this book and ship it to you, it's this much. So they have all these different ways they can buy the book. They can buy it with whatever retailer they're comfortable with. They can buy it from me, or they can buy it as an ebook wherever they want. And then I also put up there a media kit. So media kits are how you get all of these speaking engagements. And so what we did was we just made the whole media kit into a Google link. So I go into Google Drive, I put in, there's about 25 things. There's different pictures and different high resolutions. There's pictures of me in the bikini when I was 20. There's pictures of me now after being a food critic. And there's press releases, there's the book cover, there's blurbs about me, blurbs about the book. All of the media I've done before, because a lot of them want to see if I can speak. So like, I'll take this and put it on the website. So, and then pictures of the events I've done, and that's all in there. So when the press releases are sent out saying, hire Teri, they have everything they could possibly need in one little bundle. And it's just on one link that I can update or change anytime I want. And then contacting me. And then I do pictures from events I've done, because when I do events with this book, because it's about a trapeze artist, I bring trapeze artists with me. So I went to the local gym and I said, do you have any aerial artists? And they're like, we do, we have 3, and they're all like 15 years old. And then they have a portable trapeze, and they set it up in front of where I am. And while I'm talking, they're doing what I'm explaining. Because, with the trapeze book, it wasn't easy to explain everything because not everybody's experienced that. So it was really nice to go, okay, now she's in a planche, and now she's doing this, and now she's doing that. And so, so I take video of them and that, so they know that if I'm coming to you, I can come with just me and the books and the husband, or I can come with trapeze artists and circus food. And we tried to get a tiger. It's only $500, right, Garrett? To bid the tiger to come and visit was $500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you'll see one of those at some point. I'll have money for that. So, and then I have charities that I support because the circus, this is about the circus from 1980s, and there were still very much animals in the circus, and the animals were not hurt. That the whole thing was all BS and made up. The animals ate better and were treated better than the humans in the circus. So now there is no more animals in the circus. All the circus animals are now in special places because they are performing animals, so they couldn't put them in zoos because these guys like to get up and do something. So all the charities that took all the circus animals in are in the back of the book. So I put that in there, and like, if you want to do this, because like the elephant, she has to get up every morning and she makes them stand up and walk in a circle. And if she doesn't do it, they come unglued because that's just what they know and they're comfortable with. So, and then a link to my author website. So since I couldn't do book signings, I decided to do food and wine signings. So I went to the restaurants that I had written about, and I said, all right, here's what I want to do. I'm gonna put a trapeze in your front yard. And then I want you to pick 3 or 4 dishes and 2 or 3 kinds of wine. Tell me how much that's gonna cost, past appetizers or buffet. And then my book is this much. And then we'll sell 1 ticket that includes the whole night, everything they could eat and drink, the trapeze, and one of the signed copies of my book. And that price point was $55. It wasn't that big. And that sold out in like 3 days. I sold 100 tickets in 3 days because who doesn't want, I mean, people were talking about it forever. There's like, there's a circus in Grover Beach. It's just me. But, and again,
COVID or after? When did you do that?
That was November 15th.
Oh.
Yeah, I did it on my sister's birthday. That's why that was that date. Then I was like, I wanted it because she dies in the book. And so I wanted to celebrate her by having the book come out on that day. So yeah, and so now I've got one at a winery up in Paso Robles where we're doing the same thing. So it's just wine and a few appetizers. And then I've got one at a little bar in Pismo that's just a little bar in Pismo. And then I've got another big one at Mistura. So, and these things are so easy for me to sell, especially since we did the first one. There's all these beautiful, everybody's having a good time. I have little red noses for everybody to put on. People had more fun. I have a great shot of Janice with the red nose on her nose. But it's, since COVID, events like that have kind of gone away, or they've even gotten so ridiculously expensive, nobody is going to go do it. But for $55 and you walked away with a first edition signed book, I didn't have any trouble selling those tickets at all. So I have 3 more scheduled for this year. I'm trying not to saturate the market. So speaking engagements like this, but I also speak at Rotaries. I speak at all the libraries, the little libraries, like that tiny, tiny little libraries, and they love it. I had my first one was at the San Luis Obispo Library, and I brought the trapeze and I bought the food and I bought the whole thing. And it was on Thursday night because I figured people would come by on their way to farmers market, 1 person came. And Gary dragged another, I think, a homeless guy in. But so that one, for no reason, except for, I just think when people go out now after COVID, they go do one thing, where we used to go out and do multiple things. Now they could do one thing and they go back home, is the only thing I can think of. But the small little libraries, I go like at 10 o'clock in the morning and there's 25 people there. And they are now just doing, they call them author talks, and they love them. The people go crazy. There was people that weren't there for that, but like came in to listen to me, and I just talk about the book, the process of writing the book. And of course, I always field 100 circus questions. But I'm also doing Rotary writers clubs like this. I'm doing a talk at, they have like this SLO, what's it called? This, where it's all the restaurants inside that one old barn there on Tank Farm. Yeah. Anyway, they have a space in there and they want things in there. So we got an engagement of me just to come and talk about what it's like to be in the circus.
New center.
Yes, yes. And the same with the Paso Market Walk. I've got one up there because everybody's looking for things to do that aren't really expensive, but are still kind of entertaining. So the circus book certainly is something you can do. And then the other thing I really worked on was book clubs. I put it in the back of the book. If you have a book club, I will come, I will talk, I will give you discussions, I will do anything you want for your book club. So funny story about that. So I have it's like he's not really a related, he's a cousin from now. Anyway, some of those weird things. But he's been in San Quentin for murder since I was 18 years old, right? And nobody's heard anything. Every time he goes up parole, his sisters are like, kind of, don't let him out, don't let him out, right? So I get a letter in the mail from San Quentin. I'm like, holy shit. Oops, sorry. And I open it up and it's him. He somehow found my book and saw that I was open to doing book clubs. And he said, the librarian at San Quentin would love to have me there. And I'm like, yeah, no. You can just lose my address. But like I have one book club right now who's doing, there's 22 people in the book club because it's an international book club. They're each buying a book and they're each guaranteeing to give me a review on Goodreads and on Amazon, which is gold. I mean, I sold 100 books the very first night, my very first event, and I still only have 24 reviews on Amazon. I'm doing better, but getting reviews are hard because people don't like to write, but you have to kind of force them to. So if a book club wants to do it, I'm like, I will come, I'll Zoom with you, I'll answer questions for as long as you want, but you have to guarantee me reviews. And they're like, okay. So definitely book clubs. And I'm finding a lot of the book clubs on Facebook groups. I know everybody has kind of migrated away from Facebook, but I've migrated right back because there's all these groups that started during the pandemic. There's and they are so responsive. I went in and just went everything that was writing or women or anything. I joined and told them why I was joining. And by the end of the week, I had gotten 4 interviews and 2 requests to write an article. And those go out to gazillions of fans. So definitely look to Facebook for that. Then the other thing, and this will make you all groan, but I have a 10-year-old granddaughter and she got me going, is book talk. Book talk is where you need to be. And I know you all hate it and you don't want to be there. Most of you don't even know what it is, but it's a social media platform that's all video. And it used to be you did dances and stuff, but if you go to TikTok and you search book talk, there is the biggest group of reading nerds you'll ever meet in your life. Book talk has been responsible for resurrecting writers' careers. Like some of Tom Robbins stuff that nobody had bought in 100 years, they got it. So not only were they reprinting again, but there was like a high demand for his stuff. And he's like, I don't even know how this is happening. So what you do on book talk, you don't go in and scream, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. You go in and you say, I just read this book. It's not your book. And this is what I think about it. And this is what it made me feel. And this is what I recommend. And I don't even show my face. I just show the book. And so I go through my old dusty bookshelves. I pull out everything I loved. And I did a 30-second to a minute-long video talking about the book with just the video on the book, right? And maybe open it up a little bit. And then, and they all get saved into drafts. And then you go in and you put your hashtags in it, which is buy my book here. And book talk, if you put hashtag book talk, it gets more things. And then you have to turn on closed captions, which I'm not sure why, but if you turn on closed caption, you get twice as many views. And then all you do in your little profile of TikTok, it just says, author of The Greatest of Ease, buy my book here with the link to all the things. That's it. So if anybody's curious about what I say and they go look at me, then all they're getting is buy my book. And so we were driving to LA and I was able to do like 24 TikToks or book talks. And, some of them are getting 2,000-3,000 reviews and comments, and they're not my book, but I know they're looking at my book. And so then I've been running contests on Book Talk saying that if you like this or comment on this, I will send you that package, which is the book and all the swag from the book. But then when they get it, the thing is they have to do a TikTok of them unveiling it. And they love it. It's like stupid things like circus peanuts and cotton candy and eyelashes, because there's a lot about me and the fake eyelashes. I had to wear those back then. They love it. And the clown nose, and then a book and the bookmark. And that has sold more books than anything I've done. And all I have to do is talk about other people's books. Now, if I have a book signing or something like this, I'll go on TikTok and say, this is where I'm going to be, and this is where you can see me. You can watch it on Zoom, you know, or videos from things I just did. The other thing I'm doing is, since I'm not going on tour, because at first I was gonna buy one of those Sprinter vans. My girlfriends and I had planned to crisscross the whole country. My dear friends Gwendolyn and Mark gave me their list of all the things they do, because they go out and do that. And I'm like, how do you do that? They gave me their list, they gave me everything, and I'm like, okay, no, I'm not gonna be able to do that. And so what I'm doing is I'm putting my book in the hands of people that are traveling. So my book is on tour. So my book has been to Belize, my book has been to Greece, my book has been to Australia. It's currently in Thailand. And so every time somebody sends me back one of those pictures, I put just hashtag book on tour, and there you see my book traveling all over the world. So it's a really good way to kind of like turn it on its end, because like, you don't want me, fine, here, get my book. And okay, so the other thing I did is I reviewed other authors. So just like on TikTok or Book Talk, talking about them, I actually went into Goodreads and Amazon, and all those books I read 30 years ago, I went in and did a review on them. All the people that came to all 6 years of my conference, I went in and reviewed I read them, and then reviewed every single one of those books. And that, again, kind of got it. So people were looking at me going, wow, she reads a lot. Well, yeah, I got 60 years worth of reading underneath me. So, and so that really helped a lot, because then you turn around and Jonathan Mayberry's like, Teri, you reviewed 10 of my books. I'm like, well, yeah, I love you and all your books, but it was never important before. Can you do mine? And he's like, yes. Okay. So, so that's the other thing, is just to go into and on all of my socials now, on everything, it's not even my face, it's cover of the book and the link to where I buy all the books. So that's all anybody knows about me, is I've got this book to sell. I know that's you, Mom. And then getting reviews of your books. That's the hardest part. With each book that I sell, I put a little slip of paper on the very last page that said, if you like this book, please review it. It means the world to me. Because here's the thing, on Amazon, you are not discoverable until you've sold at least, or until you have gotten at least 20 reviews. You can sell 20,000 books, but if you don't have more than 20 reviews, they can't just search for the name of your book. They have to search for the name of your book and your name. So that 20 number was so important to me. So, you know, after I did my first event, I sent an email out to everybody like 2 weeks later. If you liked it, please. Nothing. Gary was so bad. We were out to dinner with a friend one night, and he's like, review it now. We're like getting sushi. She's like, how much think he goes, no, 20 words, do it now. And she did. It's the funniest thing I've ever read. This is a really good book. You should read it during the summertime with a margarita, because you have to do 20 words. But reviews are hard to get. And I mean, my first book was a culinary erotica. So it was sex and food. Who doesn't like that? Sold a bunch of them. Everybody loved it. Nobody would review it. And I get that, because, you know, like, oh, I'm a pervert too. But it was like this one, there's a little sex in it. It's a little spicy, but it's like, oh my gosh, you guys. So, I encourage you to do everything you can to get those reviews. You know, like Mark, we were talking to Mark, I see he was walking out, and he's like, oh, I love the book. And I said, did you review it? He's like, of course I did. And I'm like, okay, that's all I wanted to know, because you can't go in there and stalk it, or you'll lose your mind. I got one bad review, but it wasn't 20 words. So I think it was a bot. At least that's what I want to think. But it was like a waste of money and a waste of time. But now it doesn't look like it's like everybody's a plant, because everything else was 5 stars. I'm like, somebody had to have a problem with this book. Maybe not. So, and then one of the other things I'm doing is affiliate marketing. So affiliate marketing is like with bookshop.org. I can become an affiliate of theirs. So every time you go to one of my websites or any of my stuff that I've signed up with them, and you buy a book, they give me a little tiny bit of that. Okay. There's a ton of them now to do that. There's Goodreads does it, bookshop.org, BookPub, BookBaby. I have this all back there, so you guys don't have to read this. Book Cave, Book Rebel, and Bargain Booksy. every single one of those has an affiliate. It took me 10 seconds to fill it out, but now I get these little checks from them because people are finding my book and I'm an affiliate, so it's going through that. There's also
Give your affiliates.
yeah, they can get these really weird little tiny deposits because everything goes straight into one account, so you never really kind of know. But I did find one that was great, was Next Book Boyfriend. So if you're writing any kind of romance or anything like that at all, it was. Terry's head exploded.
Is everybody on mute on Zoom?
We need everybody to mute yourselves at home, please. We're getting feedback through the microphones.
Thank you. I guess I could have said that. So yeah, my Next Book Boyfriend, not only was I an affiliate, but then I signed up for like a couple of their newsletters and a blast of my front page to their whole, and it's like 10,000 people, and it was $5. So, I mean, you're just getting, because that's how it's going right now. They're all doing it online, where we used to browse the bookstores, where they're not doing it anymore. Then the next thing I did was got on a lot of podcasts. So I started with just Dave Congleton here, because him and I he was before me in the conference, was before Judy. And anyway, Dave and I go way back. And so he put me on there, and then I walked around that radio station and asked everybody else in there, Adam, have me on the radio, Nicole, have me on the radio. She's like, okay. And then I have one intern, all I did was Google writing websites and circus websites. And so she has a list of about podcasts. She has a list of about 500 of these. And so what she does is she sends this press release, Teri would like to be on your show. They all want to know what I sound like. So there had to be something about me talking to make sure I didn't stumble and say things like shit, like I just did. But it's the only word you can't say on the radio. And it stumbles out of my mouth every time I'm there. And when I'm in with Dave, he keeps his finger on the button. I tried, but podcasts are a good way to kind of get, like the couple of podcasts I've been on, we're writing writing podcasts, and one was a circus one. So each of them went in a different way than I would ever go. Like they asked questions that I wouldn't ask and did things they didn't do. So it really kind of helped with all of my marketing, because now I can like upload that to my website and to my media kit and said, okay, here's me talking about this. We went somewhere else. So definitely get on podcasts. And then if you can't, because I was having trouble at first, so I started my own. I had a 17-year-old come over to my house and hook up a microphone to my laptop. And on Substack, I have my own podcast. And so now I'm just bringing in all my friends and villains, and we're just talking for an hour. It seems to be what you do. And, you don't have to know anything. You just have to be able to keep a conversation going. And then the book sites. So the book sites have been really good because they're really genre specific, like My Next Boyfriend, or they're really, 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 really specific. All of them have asked me to write articles for them. And so I'm recycling articles. Like one of them was like, what was it like to write this book? Because it's about me, what it was like to visit your 20-year-old stupid self. And it was like, it was hard. So I wrote it all out on how I did it, how I went through it, because it started in first person. And then I couldn't stand thinking about my ex-husband in that way. So I went to third person and turned her into a character. But then my writing group was like, when I was describing the trapeze and what it was like to fly and what it was like to sit on the back of an elephant, they're like, you have to do that in first person, because not many people have done that. So I went back to first person. So it was a hot mess of first, third. I remember asking a bunch of the people at the writers' conference, can I just leave it that way? And I'm like, no. So part of my editing process was making sure I was in the right person point of view. So there's Facebook groups. There's Reader and Writers Book Club. There's Bay Area Travel Writers, because this is kind of a travel book because I travel all over the world with it. Pipeline Artists has been a big one with me. Read It Here First and Books by Women have been the ones that I kind of narrowed down on those because they were kind of in my genre, and they both got a whole bunch of people behind them. So I just keep doing stuff for them and they're doing stuff for me. And then influencers, as much as we all not like them. I found in people, because there's Bookstagram and there's Book Talk, because Instagram was not going to be outdone by Book Talk. So they have Bookstagram, and that's all everybody does is I just read this book and this is what it's about. Most of them like their faces in it. I don't, but you know, this is that about. So when I see one of them and they've got 3 million followers, I just write in the comments, maybe would you like to read The Greatest of Ease? Because it doesn't cost me anything to send them an ebook. It is just a push of a button. If I have to send them that, it's $5 shipping. But if I just send, so I just reached out to every influencer, you know, because I'm not on there incessantly. It may seem like it, but I don't do social media for more than an hour a day. And I go through and I look and, oh, she's got a lot of people and she seems like she likes this. So I send her a little thing. Would you like my book? And they almost always say yes. Who turns down free books, right? So it's just about kind of going through and, you know, now on TikTok, all I get is book stuff, book and tiny kitten cute stuff. But, and then I, you know, one of the things I do is I run contests a lot. And then when, I think I already said this, but when they win, I send that whole thing and say, you have to video yourself, get it in the mail. And, you know, because that's what everybody does. They do whatever they're doing. So all these things, like if I do a book talk, it's a video of a book. I also put it on YouTube. I put it on Instagram. I put it on Facebook. I've done one thing and I put it on 5 or 6 different things.
What kind of contests?
So the contests are like this comment. Say you like this comment. I ran one that said, say you want to run away and join the circus. And I had 250 people that said, I want to run away and join the circus. So I gave one of them that box, which cost about $40 to ship. And then everybody else, I gave an ebook. So, you know, because at this point I was looking for reviews, because the more reviews you get, the more books I'm going to sell. So putting the hands in as many, the book in as many hands as possible was what the goal was. And then I'm teaching classes again and workshops at Cuesta and Hancock Community College. Kind of one like this. I teach a bunch of writing classes. Yes.
Are you afraid of security issues
With what?
online?
No. No, I mean, I've always had, because I've always been kind of a public figure, so I've always had like a mailbox. Nobody knows my actual address except for Janice. So, and then I have one phone that's just for work. So I've always been kind of careful with that. Plus we live way out in the middle of nowhere. And if anybody comes there, we got these big, ugly dogs that look like they're going to eat your face. So, but no, I've never been, I mean, I've been online since they invented it. So I'm really careful with what I do and say. But to me, it's like, if you don't put yourself out there, you're not going to get anything left. So that's how I kind of am about it. He hates it, but he's not gonna shake his head. Anyway, so yeah, it was really easy to get in to teach at Cuesta and the community programs at both Cuesta and Hancock. I just like, I'm going to teach a book, or I'm going to teach one, the marketing one, and then I teach a character one, which I've taught for 10 years on how to write characters. And then I teach another one, how to write a novel in 90 days. And that's just first draft. That's just how to get it done, how to get out of your own way and send it off to the professionals. And then I teach another one about community publishing, because it's not self-publishing anymore. We have a whole community that's helping us publish. So I share all my resources. Who did my my developmental editing? Who did my copy editing? Who did my line editing? How you get it, how you get your cover done? How you get it up to Amazon? How you get it to Ingram Spark so you're in the bookstores and in the libraries. So I teach people how to do that themselves, or give them the tools to do it themselves. And everywhere I talk, I sell a book. So they are back there for sale. I have a hardback and a softback. The hardback is $40. I'm sorry about that. It's not my fault. It's trees. And the softback is $20. And if you have any questions about marketing or circus, I'm here to answer them.
How do you get all the energy to do this?
This is kind of the way I wake up in the morning.
It's very impressive.
Man, okay. I have a question.
It's my mother.
No, you're not supposed to tell anybody. I am so proud of you. I am just so friggin' proud of you. What if your book is so exciting and tell everybody that my book's not exciting. It's a murder mystery. How do I say, oh, you got to read this? It's fantastic. It's great. It's not as exciting as, oh, I ran away and joined the circus.
Yeah, but
Shit at 18.
Joyce, the murderer is exciting. Otherwise, you wouldn't put a murder in it. So that is exciting. There's more people that read murder mysteries than anything else, and more people that read murder cozies than read anything else. So yeah, and then the other thing you have is you have an older woman saving the world, basically your world in your book. So that's how I would pitch it.
Okay. Okay. And one more quick one. Do you think that every author that is published has to have a website?
No.
Okay.
But
So you're in trouble.
it's a good way to sell a book without putting an invoice in it and shipping it and hoping they'll send you a check.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Love you.
Good job. I love you too. I'm so proud of you.
So you spend about an hour a day
On social media.
on social media. Wow. But you must have spent many hours doing all this to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, well,
To
it's,
set it all,
it's,
to
yeah,
get in the
it's,
motion and the.
I mean,
rhythm of it.
I started in March. I mean, I started in November. That's when I figured out bookstores weren't going to take me.
Uh-huh.
So I've done all that in this amount of time. So it wasn't that long. It was just, I mean, my main skill set is marketing, and so it's easier for me than most. And that's why I like to share it, because you take my little list and you don't have to do all the research that I did. And you don't have to do everything I did. You can just pick one. If you want to do Substack, or if you want to do Bit Talk, you don't have to do it all. I'm just telling you everything I've been using.
Mhm.
Yes.
You have a question. So why won't bookstores put your book on the shelf? I mean,
Mark Parson wrote an article on, or like a little thing on Facebook about that today. So the bookstores have to buy your book, and they have to buy it from Ingram Spark, and it has to be returnable. So there's that. And then the book comes in, and then they have to rearrange their store. And so events, if you're not used to them, seem just too much for a lot of people. I mean, the bookstore people, I think, like to open the door and talk to people about books. And I think, some things that went away with COVID, people were very glad they went away. And I think that's what it is. I mean, I live close to the Village. And so there's that new Monarch Books. I was all excited. I went hopping in there. I lived right around the corner, and I ran the Creators Conference, and they're like, no.
I went in there too.
Yeah.
Because I said,
And I'm like,
SLO NightWriters.
But
No.
they're like, no. I'm like, but I'll do everything. I'll bring food and I'm not the trapeze artist. No, there wasn't even a question. They're like, well, we're going to do a book fair in January, so you can apply for that, and we'll let you know. It's just, I don't know. I don't understand a lot of what has changed since COVID, but they don't want to do it anymore, and nobody's forcing them to. And it used to be you could go to coffee shops too. Now coffee shops are going, no. They're like, fine, I'll figure out a way to do this. But the restaurants are loving it, because restaurants and wineries, because if they bring in a music act, it costs them money. Anything they bring from outside to draw people in, it costs them money. I don't cost them any money, because we have a set thing, like they need this much money to do it that night. So if I don't sell that much tickets, it gets canceled. So they're not taking any risks on me, and we do they're doing the same thing they normally did. They have their staff, and then we even put in their tip for the staff, so everybody is handled. So I just think it's a new world, and that's why I wrote this darn thing, because I'm like, everybody else has got to be going. Oh my goodness! I mean, Mark was saying in his article today that he contacted 40 bookstores and got 20 to say yes. And and they're young adults. There's no risks with them. It's little kids coming in, and they're really smart. They go to junior highs and talk about their book and everything else. So, but yeah, it's a whole new world.
Do they take a percentage
Who?
of the bookstores when you have a book signing? Do they take a percentage of what you?
They take everything. So most bookstores won't do it unless they can buy it from their supplier themselves and return the books that don't sell.
Okay.
Very few will let you bring in your own trunk full of books.
Oh, okay. Thank
But
you.
I don't know. All I know is they said no a lot.
You know, Coalesce is very supportive of local authors though, right? In Morro Bay?
No, she told me no.
Really?
I did my first, bye Brian, I did my first book signing there, and I'm like, remember me? I was a crazy one that painted my toenails red 5 minutes before I walked inside. I like do these weird things when I'm stressed, and so then there was like toenail polish all over everything. And she said, no. They're
She
not.
probably thought you were going to bring too many people in the store.
Oh, you're so
It's a small
nice.
store.
Brian. No, I didn't.
I'd ask her.
Anyway, so, but to me, it was the way I look at things is every no is an opportunity, right? I wouldn't have done all this stuff if I wouldn't have said no from the bookstores. And, when on my first book tour, it was like, some of them were like people lined around the block, and the other ones was just me in the back of the store all by myself for hours. So embarrassed. I just wanted to slip away. So there was a new author, she's a librarian. It took her 15 years to write this book. It's a beautiful book about King Arthur's children. And so she had her first book signing, was all excited to the bookstore, and nobody came. So she put it up. She's like, well, here I am by myself. And almost every other famous author commented that, yeah, it's never worked for us either. Neil Gaiman says, nobody comes to my book signing. I'm like, are you kidding me? Who else said it? It was Neil Gaiman and Margaret Atwood. Yeah. So I think that's our answer, is they kind of haven't worked. I mean, if people are going to see Neil Gaiman, for God's sakes, I'd pay concert tickets to go see him. So I don't know. So I bring trapeze artists and tigers.
And food.
And food, I do. I bring those horrible circus peanuts. They're like they're waxy type of thing. People go nuts over them. And I'm like, ugh. You can only find them at the dollar store. No reputable store will sell them. Any other questions about the book or the marketing or?
So Teri, do you talk about
yeah.
the moment that you decided to join the circus? Because I had a fantasy when I was in college where I was just sort of at the end of my rope. And I just said, I went to the Mid-State Fair. I'm like, I could just escape with the circus. Is that kind of what actually got you to join the circus?
It was kind of that. Yes, I do address it. And that was one of the reasons why it took the longest to answer. Because I still, I've been now, I have circus children and circus grandchildren. And I still really can't answer why I did it. So,
I can't.
Mom, please mute. I was in a bad place. We were in Reno. I was with bad people. I was doing bad things. And I had, my dad had been a Shriner. And so I'd been going to Shrine circuses since I was 13 years old. And so I knew one of the boys who was the same age as me from 13 years old, Raphael would come. What's his Ramon in the book. So Raphael would come every year and I'd take him out and do whatever was appropriate age for us at that year. And once we were driving, we were doing all stuff. And then I was 20 and I was having a hard time. And I went to the circus and Raphael was there and he's like, well, we've got these new trapeze artists. You're going to love them. And I'm like, okay. And yeah, it was the red tights. I don't know. So my best friend and I were like, they're like, come with us. Because we were in Reno. And they're like, come with us to Sacramento. We're like, this is going to be a great story for Bards. We're going to join the circus for a weekend. So we both went and they put us in those ridiculous, you'll see the pictures over there. And like the very first, walk out and you've got this outfit and it's 6 feet high on your head. And they put me on an elephant. I'm like, I can't ride an elephant. They're like, cute. I hopped on up there, and then by the end of the weekend, I was just entranced by the whole thing. I was a theater major. I wanted to travel. I didn't have any money. I thought, what the heck? I was in college to be a lawyer. I didn't want to do any of that. So I joined the circus. And then I wrote a book, as one does.
Who would have thought it'd been such good training for 2023?
I know, seriously.
Harry, are you going to supply the all of your paperwork there in the back of the room to the people on Zoom?
Yes, Janice has it all there, so she's going to put it up on the Zoom link.
Okay. And a second question, when you go to functions like you speak to the Quota Club and things like that, into the libraries, do you just walk in cold call and just with your book and say, hi, I published a book and I'd like to speak with you, or how's that work?
It's usually an email. Like, I mean, unfortunately, my mom's right. I said, would you and your club like to run away and join the circus? And that's a good hook. And then I explained, I just wrote a book about it, and I can talk about publishing, or I can talk about marketing, or I can talk about just what it was like to be in the circus, which usually is all anybody wants to,
Okay.
especially after they've read it. So yeah, I mean, my advantage here is with the libraries, the whole conference time, the very first thing when they made me director, I figured that the library wasn't involved. That doesn't make any sense, because you can't have books unless you have writers. So I went to the new head of the library here in San Luis Obispo, and him and I forged this relationship where we gave a conference away at every library, and then I let every single library come for free to the conference. So it was kind of like, hi, old friend, remember me? Can I come? You know, and they don't do anything. They put it on their newsletter, but I just walk in, set myself up at one of their tables. And so it's not any work for the librarians, because they're, 5 minutes after I leave, the preschoolers are coming for story time. So they're used to all this movement and events coming in and out. So it's a natural thing for them. So the Paso Robles Library has me doing, they have me doing something else. It's this, because they're trying to attract writers. So they're having me do this speech and then kind of talk about the book. Any other questions?
I think
I have a
Greg
question.
online wants to ask a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a question. How do you, what are your tips on a book launch party, in person or online?
I insisted on doing mine online because I wanted the food and the element and of course, the trapeze artist to be a part of that. I'm very anti-online because I got sick of it during the pandemic. So I don't think I transfer well online. So that was never even a question. That was one of the reasons I quit the writers conference being the director, because they were going to do it online. It seemed like forever. And I'm just like, I can't. So, but I think you can do it. I think you can do it effectively, especially if you go through all these groups that I gave you, that you can get a lot of people there.
Oh, I want to make one more comment before I leave. There was a book I liked. It was called, it was a book I really liked by Catherine Nixie. She's a scholar in England about the darkening age. And all I had to do was just email circulation for that library, and a few weeks later, they put it in.
Yeah.
It was that simple.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Yeah. So each of the libraries that I visited, done a talk with, I gave them a book and just signed it to, the Oceana Library or the Aurora Grande Library. And they've been lending it out. But now the hardbacks are in. They came in like a month or so ago, and I guess the hardbacks on the shelves. So that's the other thing you can do if you can't get into bookstores. If you just send all your friends and family into the bookstores and have them say, hey, do you have the Great Seas by Teri Bayus? And if 1 or 2 people a week ask for it, they will put it on the shelf. And it's but that's like the only thing I asked Carol at Volumes of Pleasure. She goes, unless people are asking for it, I can't. And I'm like, okay, but I'll put a trapeze in your driveway.
Go into the bookstore and rearrange the book so that yours is full cover, not spine.
Exactly. I haven't been going in bookstores because I'm,
So I have one more question. So what about like the LA Times Festival of Books? Is that like, would that be helpful or?
You know, I have that same question because they call me once a week.
Don't do it. It was one of the worst investments of my career.
I was gonna ask somebody. Thank you, Brian. Yeah. How much is it?
It was like $2,500. I got a whole bunch of authors to go down with me, but I certainly disappointed them. It was so hot and miserable. It's basically just a massive amount of people, and you're competing with book publishers who are selling off their remainders for like $5 a book. So if you want to go unload books, it's a good place to go. But basically, you can't sell your books for full price. People expect to get books for free because publishers are just giving books away. And it's such a huge population. There's no like niche. It's like the worst thing you can do is try to appeal to everyone. So
Right.
it was miserable, and it was hotter than heck. So it was just.
We had one book fair here that was 105 degrees in Pismo. Oh, it was so bad. And it was all outside and everybody was melting. Some of the biggest writers in the whole wide world, I had them melting in the parking lot. I went around going, it's not normally this hot here. It's not normally this hot.
It's a great place to go if you want to go buy books, because you will never find books cheaper. And it's like current bestsellers. It's like the publishers just at the end of the year, they decide to just unload their warehouses. So if you want to go buy books, definitely go to the LA Book Festival, but don't go there to sell.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, they keep calling me and I'm like,
What was it called?
Yeah.
LA Times Festival of Books.
and then once you've published online, they start calling you because they've been calling since Consumed, and Consumed is like 9 years old. I get a call about once a month and I'm like, I gotta ask somebody if that's worth it or not. But so one of the things I'm doing is I'm also going to all the aerial gyms. So since there's a bunch of aerialists in my book, every gym in every town now has an aerial program. So I make it so I come while the aerialists are working out. So I'm kind of just on the side, but going, see what she's doing there? That's what you need to do. So that's one of the other places I'm selling, because, and the other places are like events, like the Tamale Festival in Atascadero this weekend. You go to the Tamale Festival expecting to spend money, expecting to buy tamales and maybe a drink or two, and then all the little weird things that you only see at those kind of festivals. Those things sell more books than anything else, because you get to talk to people in a casual, because they all want to know. We bought a bunch of weird spice stuff that you put it in with sour cream and it makes like these fabulous, or so she says. So we bought them, but I would never have bought them. But I know Jenna Johnson sells more books at the Aurora Grande Harvest Day Festival or whatever. And she said, and hers are like dragons and sword books, but that's her #1 selling place every single year. She sells more books there than anywhere else. So I've been trying to get into all those because it's like $30 for a booth to do it. You got to lug everything up there and have the table and sit there all day long, but.
Along that line, our board is talking about putting up booths at some of these festivals for members to come in and sell at the table. Yeah. What would you consider about that?
I think it would be a good idea, but you have to, writers are terrified, scared people, right? right. We all are kind of like, we just sit at home and write, except for me, I'm one of those options that was the other way around. So, I mean, because you have kind of the same problem that I had with CCWC. How do I get them there, right? Because a writer is someone who can hold a pen, whether they're 9 or 95, right? So it was always like this marketing problem about how do I get to everybody and bring them in? So we did things like contests. We did things like very specific, like niche things. Like, the one year I had the women thing that was only about women talking, and it was a disaster because Kavanaugh had just gotten sworn in that day, so it was like and then yeah, I mean, if any of you came to the conference, there was always some weird thing, like we did Burn the Bully one year, that was all these strange things. Those were specifically answering to get a certain group of people there. So the year we did Burn the Bully, there was a big bully around, and everybody was kind of having a reaction to that. So we did this thing where you came, which had nothing to do with writing, but you came and you took your bully and you wrote it on a piece of paper and you stuck it in a little chicken wire thing we had, and then we lit it on fire. And then I had huggers, people with t-shirts on that said, I'm a hugger. around it because it turned out to be really powerful that when people
did.
read their bellies away, they wanted to hug somebody. But that was a specific thing, a marketing thing that I was doing to get a specific type of people there, people that felt they were being bullied and needed to talk out about it. So I mean, we did one book fair in the Mission because on Thursday night, because there's 50,000 people. And I thought, okay, they'll all come up there. We had a booth, we had a dinosaur or something, because we had a whole children's section down there. And then we had little signs going up here to the book and author fair. And I had 220 authors. Nobody came. Nobody walked up the street. I started taking like all of my authors just down one block and go, look, there are people here. I do not know why they're not, because we have people that are come on. So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But if you're going to do it, I'd have like a, have some kind of giveaway or something. Like, as Brian said, find somebody with a garage full of books and give books away. I don't know, you just, but yeah, I mean, anywhere where you're getting in front of people and everybody's willing to do it, if I sell one book tonight, it's worth it, right? Because then one person might say, well, I've read this book and I like it, or, whenever I travel, I leave the book everywhere because I want people to find it. Like if I'm out of the country, I leave the book there in wherever we're staying, hotel, Airbnb, whatever, so someone will find it. I did that with Eldana's books. I took Eldana's books all over the world.
Have you ever donated books to the library or high school or things like that?
Well, mine are grown-up ones, so can't go to the high school. But yes, like I said, at each library that I was in, I signed a book to the library and donated it to them, because that makes sure that it's on the shelf. Because then when I looked on Libby, it's available at almost every library now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Harry, how many books do you take with you when you go to someplace like a library or one of these little events that you put on? How many physical books do you take with you?
So right now I have, I think 5 there, and then 3 of the hardbacks, and then I have a whole other case back behind it just in case. So I take enough to make it look like a nice display, and then I have a whole nother case, because at the Writers Club, or no, it was just at the Napomo Library, I sold 25 books.
Wow.
So I was like, so I always put 1 extra case in the car.
So you have to make an investment in that to even before you even get there.
Well, not really. I mean, the books cost me $4 on Amazon.
Yeah, that's true. They're not that much.
So from the very beginning, I think I bought 800 books from the very beginning, because I have a sponsor named Husband. So I said, check for books. He said, sure.
What's the advantage of having hardbacks versus paperbacks?
Some people will only buy hardbacks. Some people will only buy first edition signed hardbacks, and they don't care how much it costs. I found that out from a couple people, and then it was a vanity project because I got a whole nother cover underneath it. So the hardback, if you look at the one over there, the jacket looks just like my softback, but the inside's really pretty. Any other questions? Yes.
You made a comment that like you can buy a book for $4 on Amazon. So, but I thought you did community self-publishing or something.
I did. So I published myself. And so when you publish, both Booker is one of the ones you use, and you use Amazon if you're going to do the KDP thing, and they sell them to you at their cost. So when I buy my books, I get them only at my cost. Like I just did my mother's book, and it was only like, because it was only 100 pages, only like, they're like $2.50 a book.
So that's the author copy, right?
Mm-hmm. But I can buy all I want. I can buy 1 million. I can buy them for the rest of my life.
So it doesn't have to be like self-published through Amazon?
No, you always get an author price. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. But then to do The hardbacks I went through Boker because they have better quality.
How do you spell that?
It's over there, Bowker. Oh, maybe it's not because it's a whole nother thing. So Bowker. So that's where you get your ISBN numbers. That's where
Oh, yeah.
you do all that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your classes at Ellen Hancock, like, how many do you offer per semester? When do you start with time?
And they start in the fall because I just decided to do it again. They start in the fall and they're like Thursday nights and around 6 o'clock and then till 9.
So it's like once a week or?
Yeah, once a week. Yeah, because I do a series of 4 different ones. I used to do it was so much fun. I did a food writing part of that. So we went to a restaurant. We took the whole class to the restaurant. The chef gave us 9 courses plus wine. And then I just stood at the top of the table and explained how you be a food critic and what you're looking for and how you do it. And then everybody had to write a review for the restaurant. They had to write a Yelp, a Google, and a Facebook review. So it was work, it was $30. Was what the cost of the class was. And it worked well for everybody because the restaurant got like this influx of really good reviews or not so good reviews. I ran into a guy the other day and he's like, Teri Bayus, I owe you an apology. And I'm like, why? I'm like, who are you? And he's like, I took your class, your writing class, but I didn't like the food, so I didn't do the review. I'm like, you should do the review. Yeah. I'm like, get it done. He's like, it's been 6 years. I'm like, I don't care. Do it. Oh, right. I'm a big tamale fan at this point. I ate my weight in tamales this weekend. Anyway, any other questions? No. Tamale making trapeze artist to class. I like that. I made tamales one time. It was the hardest thing I've ever done.
It's quite a fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, my students were interested. I had to get measuring scoops because they would make baby tamales.
All right, well, thank you guys all for coming. If you want a book, they're back there. I will sign them for you.
Thank you for the tip.
You're welcome. And there's a tip sheet back there. Thank you, Ariel. She's commandeered my parents.
Yay, Teri, good job.
Way to go, girl.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you all on Zoom.
Thank you. Don't forget